Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, How to Automate Contracts Now from Start to Finish and Never Miss Another Deadline. My name is Nicole Schmeida. I'm the Senior Marketing Specialist here at DocuWare. I'll be moderating the session today. I have a poll question for you, and we have a fun giveaway, and we'll have Q&A at the end, so thank you again for joining us. Today's main presenter will be Mark Machonsky. He's a regional sales director here at DocuWare. He has over 15 years of experience equipping companies with document management, workflow, so it's great that we have him here on the line today. The first few minutes, Mark will kind of take you along the journey of thinking about what contract challenges are you facing now and how DocuWare helps you come out on top. Then he'll go into a live demo so you can see a first look in action, and then we'll open it up for your Q&A and hopefully get your questions answered there. But before I pass it off to Mark, I do have a question for you guys first. So I'm going to launch it now on the screens. Give a moment here. How are you managing your contracts now? Please take a moment to select an answer. There is no defined process. Maybe you guys, you haven't actually documented it. You just kind of been on autopilot, you're winging it. You do have a manual process and it's just paper only. Or maybe it's a mix of digital and paper, but you feel like there should be a way to automate it, streamline it even more. Or you're already using some sort of contract software. And that's great that you're here on the line today to see what DocuWare can offer for you and give you even more productivity benefits. Because DocuWare isn't only just for contract management, as you'll see, we'll show you that in today's session, but it can be, once you have it in place for contract management, it can be expanded throughout your whole organization. So it's a great 360-degree solution. So it looks like I do have a good amount of votes in. I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you all. So you can see who on the line, what is everyone facing here? So Mark, if you take a look too, it looks like a majority of people, you're working with a mix of digital and paper processes. But
Yeah.
there's a piece missing still, it seems.
Yeah, so there's the just because they're being stored digitally doesn't mean that they're actually being managed digitally, and we'll talk about that.
Right, like it could be digital, but it's still static somehow. So, all right, everyone, thank you. With that now, I'm going to pass it to Mark.
So to kick this off, things I want you to think about here today, we've already talked about whether or not you store documents manually and in paper format or digitally here. Are those documents secure? I think one of the keys here I want to focus on is the renewal concept related to contracts. If documents and contracts have expiration dates, are those things that you have to proactively go look at, or does the system you use to manage those alert you that you're approaching those deadlines so you could effectively never miss another contract deadline? And what are the consequences of missing a renewal? And does it mean your customers go somewhere else for product, or perhaps it's just a challenging business exercise to rapidly re-exercise contracts? How do you handle auto renewals when folks have to make edits with contracts? How is that done? Probably mostly in email, which is challenging to track and expedite processes. So, we hear you. We know that you've got problems out there. Having a mix of paper and digital files out there that maybe in different locations could be challenging, and oftentimes in those environments, documents can be lost or missing, or create exercises and to help to find those documents. We talked a bit about manual deadlines already, and by missing those deadlines, perhaps they cost you real money. Do you have team members in the field that need to get access to this to do their job more effectively? And maybe you're simply just running out of space in file cabinets, and you really want to not only capture that space, but create a disaster recovery plan where you can make sure that you have contracts when you need them in the event that something goes wrong. So I'm going to flip over to a DocuWare environment that I've crafted, that I've created here to walk us through some of the concepts that you could potentially solve for your organization. Understand that this is really just conceptual. A true solution for you would be configured to do what you need it to do and allow you to store the documents that you need in the manner that you need to, and find them from anywhere, and also drive the appropriate business process related to exploration or review or signature. So that what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you a quick conceptual demo of storing a record, a contract, filing that record, showing how that document is stored and how you could retrieve it. I'm going to kick off a process of review. So any one or many people could potentially be involved in a review and edit and iterative process of finalizing a contract. Once that document's finalized, we'll talk a little bit about how you could initiate a digital signature process using some of our digital signature partners out there. So let me just introduce you to the desktop that you're seeing here right now. Now we do have both a phone/tablet-based solution, but here we're looking at this on my PC. Oftentimes heavy users of DocuWare might have multiple monitors, so they could have a larger digital desktop to look at and compare and have multiple documents open at one time. On the right-hand side is where you'll view documents. We've embedded viewing technology, so you don't need to have Word or Excel or Adobe launched to view a document, either on your phone or on your PC. However, we do store all documents in whatever format you give them in, so you can always get to them and edit them within the business application that is intended to do so. So we'll view docs here. On the left is where we'll interact with documents as they're collected. We've got this idea of a document tray, and each department that uses the tool might have their own document tray, or each individual for that matter, that you could scan documents into, that we could sweep documents out of monitored email folders, that we can import from your desktop. So documents can be collected here before they're stored. We'll talk a little bit about searching. That's really important to the overall solution. And then we'll talk about some workflow concepts here that will help you have visibility in your processes and also assign specific tasks to people that need to do specific things in the contract process. By the way, that task process is an element of what I'll call workflow. And as part of that workflow, if you have people outside the organization or perhaps people inside the organization that don't want to go to DocuWare to find work, we can alert them via email, and we'll show that happening here in this demonstration. So why don't we, with that really brief introduction of DocuWare, I'm going to start this conversation out in a DocuWare folder that I've created for this demo. And by the way, I'm going to play the role of multiple people here, and we'll see the various documents and alerts and things landing back in this folder. But understand that, in fact, in the real world, there might be multiple people assigned the work that I'm going to be showing you. So you'll notice the DocuWare Word embedded into Outlook here. We've got a very tight relationship with Microsoft and have embedded ourselves into a lot of their tools. Here I've got a simple email, which is a draft of a contract that I have been either created myself on my desktop or someone, in this case, someone emailed it to me. And I want to initiate this into a review process. First, I need to file it and get it into DocuWare, get it out of my personal email into a location that anybody who needs access to it and has been assigned access can get to it. So what I'm going to do is I right-clicked on that email. I'm going to say store that record in the tray for contracts. And I've got this configured so it just stores the attachment, but in a lot of places you might be storing something like customer correspondence where you wanted both the attachment and the email body stored. But notice here we tagged that document with an indicator saying, hey, that's been pushed into the DocuWare system. It's landed in the DocuWare tray, which whomever is responsible for filing records, contract records, would be monitoring this. Notice here that this document's color-coded green. That's just a hint at a tool we call intelligent indexing that helps you easily identify the important information you need to store a record and then find it later. And I'm going to click on store and tell it that I want to store this in my contracts file cabinet. Notice the actual contract that I'm being asked to review, to file, is on the right. On the left is the data that we're going to tag that document with so that we can find it later. And many of our contract customers use very consistent templates so that I can predictably find the document type, the company name, the expiration contract date that's anticipated. Maybe you want to track the value, an amount of the contract as well. This is all configurable. So just to kind of define this, think of us as a database for filing your records, and these are the database fields that allow you to find them, track them, and drive your business processes. Interestingly, if the system was unable to find, for example, a contract amount, you notice I cleared that out on the left. I can file it by simply pointing and clicking on the right, and it should read that out of the system. I having a little glitch here today, but there you go. It's a little slow, that's all it is. When I click on store, that record now moves out of my temporary tray and it gets filed in the DocuWare repository and starts to begin to be tracked as a business record. So let me open up my search dialog here. And I have similar to the screen you just saw where we index the document, we've got a bunch of data that we can use to search and find a record. That previous record was from a company called ABC Incorporated. And if I wanted to simply see all of ABC's records, I could simply search and find those records. And here we've got 5 or 6 different records that we've just filed. Now, that previous record that we just filed was a property management. It was a property management record. So I can actually filter that list down even further and tell it I simply want to see all the property management agreements. And based on that, we're now seeing the property management record filed and available for us to find from anywhere in the world that you've got a connection to the internet. And we know all this data about that. You know, how much the value of that record, the contract start date, if it was related to a project, we could see that, who sent it to us, the document number, all that data is available to us. I could have also refined this search further by just saying I just wanted to see ABC company and just their property management, and really made that simple search available to me instantly. By the way, last bit here, you can search for any word within a document instantly, and you're going to get sub-second response typically, regardless of whether you have 10 records or 10 million records in the system, kind of Google fast searching. Okay, so we've basically captured, stored a record, and it's now available for us in our document repository. Let's move on to this idea of this list element here. And I've crafted, let's think of it as a dashboard for your contracts manager. And that dashboard is going to allow them to see where all documents related to contracts are in his process, so he's never going to miss a deadline again. So we can see that we've got none older than 90 days that are between 60 and 90 days that are expired. We've got a couple here that we can click on and see that are approaching expiration. We've got none that are due or overdue. Everything above here we're going to kind of use in the demo. We'll kind of move this recently stored document through a process of reviewing and signing. So just to kind of show you something interesting here, let's preemptively change the expiration date on one of these contracts. And I'm going to use a tool that DocuWare offers that we can use to change that expiration date. Now I can hard lock that down so people wouldn't have the right to do that. The reason I'm doing that is because I want you to see that we're now going to see that record move up to this next stage here once DocuWare refreshes its indicator here. And we should also see back in DocuWare's environment here that we've got a new contract that in fact is due within 30 days. And instead of making that person go look for that record like you might do in a spreadsheet that tracks contracts, we've alerted them that there's a record to think about that is approaching a deadline very soon. And you might have multiple dates let's say 30 days, 15 days, and the day before that contract's review, we'll harass the person who's responsible for that. I'll call it the auto nag feature, if you will. Okay, so we have now, let me refresh that, make sure that this now is in fact showing the most current data about my records here. And it appears to be, yeah, there we go, it moved up to that item. So I've also got kind of a list that shows me all the records that I've been working on very recently. Let's click on that, and we should see here our property management agreement from ABC Incorporated that we're viewing. Now, my next task that I want to perform is to get this record into a review cycle where somebody can review that record and make edits to it and move it on to the next person or decline it. So how can we do that? There's many ways we can do that. In this case, I'm going to grab from my stamp drawer a stamp that is my assignment review task for contracts. And I'm going to assign a due date for the contract review process. I can make comments. Please review and edit as needed. Hope you forgive my typing skills. And then I can pick who I want to assign that to. In this case, I'm going to just assign it to one user, but I could assign it to multiples. I could also designate whether I want anyone in that list or all of those people to edit that and review that contract. And again, this is all highly configurable. If you've got a structured process that based on the document type, it needs to go to person 1 and then person 2, then person 3, we can absolutely configure it to do that. This is more of an ad hoc concept that I'm sharing with you today. So let's take that stamp. And the beauty of the stamp is it also records on the document exactly what happened in all steps of its review. And based on putting a stamp on that record, we are now kicking off a business process that will alert somebody in the organization that they have work to do. And we should shortly see that, first of all, we could configure it so that they get an alert via email, which we did. But in this case, they've gotten in DocuWare, since they're working in it all day, every day, a task assigned to them. And again, on the right, you can see the document. On the left, you can see my task options. I can reject it and type in my reason for rejection, and then it would kick it back to the initiator. I could pick someone from my list of other contract managers and ask them to reassign it to them. But in this case, I'm looking at the document. Perhaps I see something wrong with it. Maybe I see the address is wrong. From here, I can simply edit that document. And when I say edit, I truly am, let's call it checking it out of the system, launching it Microsoft Word. Let's say, for example, I got the address wrong. And the actual correct address is 666 Mockingbird Lane. I think all you Munsters fans probably get that reference. Now, when I save that and then close Word, Word is aware, since we've integrated with it, that it was checked out from DocuWare, and it will push a copy back into the DocuWare system. So let's take a peek at that record. And by the way, this is moved in our dashboard. It's moved down a step, so now we know there's a contract in review, and I can right-click on it and see the version overviews, a view of the versions that are related to that contract, and I can see that, hey, here's our old version that had the 124 Main Street, and then here's our new version that has been edited by an individual in the organization. I happen to be the administrator who changed that address. So based on that, we're now, we'll go back to our task, and I'll just say, hey, change the address, looks good. Forgive my spelling again, I hope. And that's out of my task list and has been moved on and through our list here. And now it's in our contract review queue, I'm sorry, our signature review queue. Now, I did this manually and dropped it in front of someone saying this is available for sending out for signature, but the workflow could have captured the information you needed to, in fact, send that to somebody. So let's initiate a signature process here based on that's being at a signature step. And I'll do that same process that we saw earlier, where I'll grab from my stamp drawer a stamp that will assign this for signature, and I'm going to manually type in, this is for going to Thomas Rain, and I'm going to type in my email address so that it will go directly to me. And we're going to see a live DocuSign session here in a second. So by the way, we have multiple alternatives in terms of our signature partners. DocuWare has the ability to provide for digital signatures when you're a DocuWare user, but if you're a third party that needs to execute a contract, there are tools that are more appropriate for that, such as DocuSign. We've got a tool called Validated ID. And by the way, there's a lot of different options in terms of how we can set up signing. In this case, I'm going to do a very simple kind of an ad hoc signing process, which will allow the user to place his signature in appropriate locations on the document. But additionally, if this was a structured document, we could set it up so that the individual signing could only sign at specific locations or apply their digital stamp in certain locations. And perhaps it might go in series to a number of different signers, for example. So now I'm also recording via this stamp who in fact should be signing it, and we're initiating the stamping process. So now I'm making programmatically through DocuWare's workflow a call to DocuSign. Now the elegance of that is that we'll certainly see that that document lands in our queue called contracts out for signature. Now, if you've got a lot of contracts, DocuSign isn't necessarily very good at allowing you to track those status of those records. You know, you're probably just using email, and you almost need to remember that those signatures are out there. But this will give you the ability to also give you potentially an aging report as it relates to signature. I'm just going to refresh the screen. Hopefully it's triggered the workflow that I want it to. Okay, that contract is now out for signature, and we should find back in our email that in fact we've got a record that has been emailed to the client that we designated. In my case, it was me, and they've been given instructions from DocuWare on how to execute this contract. So based on that, now I'm living in DocuSign or Validated ID or whomever the signing entity is. I'll execute that I want to move forward with this. I can scroll down to the bottom and grab my signature element here. Let's get fancy here, and I'll sign it with my mouse, and we could also apply a date stamp to the right location. Again, we can templatize this so they can only sign in those locations, but this is a quick ad hoc way to allow people to sign contracts without any overhead and work on your part in the DocuWare side. Let's kill that, and back in the DocuWare environment, what we're waiting for now is DocuSign to send that contract back to us. And it usually goes pretty quick here. Let's take a peek here, contracts out for signature, and see if in fact it has been updated with the correct contract information. Okay, here we go. Signed contracts for processing. So now we've got the document with its signature detail in the proper locations, the detailed information on who signed it, and there's a couple other documents here that weren't there before. The second one is in fact the DocuSign validation, indicating how we validated whom that person was that signed that document, and finally the original document that was sent out to them without the signature, and all of the stamps that were applied to that by workflow to tell you, who initiated it, who approved it, who sent it out for signature. So you get a whole tracking concept. And basically, you've seen the whole life of that record proceed through the process that I defined to you earlier. Now, that's really all I had for you from demonstration today. I want you to take away the concepts of what we did here today, because again, this is a tool that would be configured for your particular needs. going to wrap up with a couple thoughts here on a presentation that we're going to close up with here. So I talked here about DocuWare as a tool for contracts management. But in fact, if you have more onerous problems in other departments related to documents, we absolutely can address those. If you're looking to potentially automate the processes of invoices, we can help you. If you are looking to process sales orders, we can help you with that. Perhaps you're looking to manage HR documents in a secure, HIPAA compliant fashion. We can help you with that as well. And drive documents, collect resumes, run them through a recruiting process, help with your onboarding processes. So we're really an enterprise class solution for content management that can be deployed in one starting department, and then you can extend that over time across the organization. I touched on this briefly, but DocuWare can be deployed 100% in a cloud environment with our partners Microsoft, or if you choose to keep this in your own data center, absolutely, we can allow you to implement this in your own secure data center and get the same user experience and functionality that I described to you here in this demonstration.
All right. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that great introductory demo. You really covered, the first look features A to Z regarding contract management. So that's great. I just have a few more slides before we wrap up. So I mentioned earlier in your GoToWebinar panel, there's a handout section. There's a recent case study in there regarding one of our DocuWare users, KMP Media Group. They're a large media and advertising agency, and since they started using DocuWare, you can see the director said that their employees just have more time now. They used to waste it on paperwork, but now they've refocused that saved time to working on higher value projects and tasks that will grow the business, such as building those relationships with customers. So that's definitely the goal here. While feature-wise, we want to help you use these tools to automate, streamline. The end goal is really to save you time, save you money, so you can do the things that drive your business forward. And if you only remember one thing from today as we end, we like to say DocuWare is your new 24/7 digital employee. They're going to help you manage all your contracts, never miss a deadline, and they're working for you when you're not. So let's take the next step and automate your contract management now. You should have received a newsletter or webinar email from your authorized DocuWare partner. Their contact info is on the bottom of that, so definitely reach out to them to schedule a conversation. You could also reply to the email as well. You can visit docuware.com/demo or email us anytime with thoughts or questions at contact.us@docuware.com, and we're here to get you started and pointed in the right direction. So with that, now we will open it up for Q&A. And again, I will email everyone the recording and the slides afterwards. So if you need to hop off early, no worries there. Let's see. First question is, you showed, the various workflow tasks. How does the user access work, such as when you edited the address in the contract?
Sure. So first of all, let's talk about how they're alerted of work. We actually saw that happen two ways. You can configure DocuWare to send them an alert that they have work via email, and there will be a link to the task in your particular email. Secondly, you could actually have, if you do a lot of document work, you probably keep DocuWare open on your desktop, and you would see a task in the task element of the DocuWare menu presented to you that you would simply click on, and it would draw you into that workflow step there. So again, the alerting is the most important part, and then anytime you get an alert by clicking on a link to that task, you'll be given the document and the instructions related to that. Now, for the last bit, you mentioned when I edited that document, you'll be given a menu within the DocuWare environment that'll allow you to do things like edit that contract. So I clicked the little pencil there. There's other ways to get at the same functionality, but that would literally download and open Word, and then when you close it, it just pushes it back into DocuWare. So hopefully that answered your question.
Great. There's a question that seems related to that one. Does the system track the changes in the document? For example, how would you know, or is it possible to know that the address was changed versus something else?
So within DocuWare, we record, if you're opening Word and editing a document within Word, you would need to use the Word tracking tools to allow you to identify what was changed within that record. So I guess that would be a corporate policy that, hey, you need to have track edits on, and before you actually publish this for signature, you need, the last step might be accepting all of the elements of that document that were changed. But that DocuWare doesn't specifically track the edits within a document. You would need the native capabilities of the editing software to do that. But it's all very feasible and potentially configurable for you.
Right, and then probably ideally you would have like a small number of people with the ability to even do that. So,
Sure.
and then like you showed before, you could see like version 1, version, it stores version 1, version 2. So, yeah, it's definitely manageable there.
Certainly.
Let's see. Next question is, how does pricing structure work? Is it user-based?
Sure. So let's talk about our cloud model for starters. The cloud model simply requires you to designate how many users, number one, and number two, how much data you're going to store. And effectively, you get access to all of the DocuWare capabilities, modules, features, and functionality. Now, in the on-premise world, we also have a per user license model, number one. We don't care how much data you store in it, but then there's core functionality that comes with the basic DocuWare license and those user licenses, but then you can layer on top of it components like workflow or digital forms or various other components. So it's a little bit more like a Chinese menu in terms of making sure you're buying the functionality that you need.
Great, let's see. What is this the workflow? Are you able to complete tasks on a phone, or is it only like on a desktop computer?
Oh no, we didn't get a chance to show you the mobile interface, but you absolutely can execute tasks on your mobile phone. It's done slightly different, but yes, if you're given options to execute, if you're assigned work, you can in fact execute that task on your phone. Now, there may be some complexities of that, such as, you know, a phone is not the appropriate place to make an edit in a contract, so that's not ideal. But simply, let's say, approving something in a final review stage or rejecting, I can give you a stamp that says approve or reject, and you would move it on to the next workflow step. But yeah, that's very much available on the web client.
All right, great. Looks like we do have a few more minutes. Can you speak to the security and compliance aspect of DocuWare?
Sure. So first of all, we assign to the users that are allowed to use the DocuWare system roles that they have, and based on those roles, they may or may not have access to certain digital file cabinets or certain documents within the environment, and that's all. We've got some very sophisticated tools to allow you to quite granularly identify who can interact with a document, see a document, and perform tasks on a document. So we might configure a role for a general user that they could see contracts, but they could not edit. But then there are higher level people that have a role that allows them to edit and review contracts. Behind that whole thing, we have a full audit trail related to every individual that interacts with a document. So we'll track, you know, documents that they've searched for and found and viewed and edited, and you'll have the ability to really see who's done what within the organization to a given document set. Now, if for any reason you need to shut off access to an employee or an ex-employee for any reason, that's very straightforward. There's a dashboard that will allow you to do that. Finally, I'll say that this can align with your Active Directory, Microsoft Active Directory, and single sign-on strategies as well. So we can make it simpler for you to create your roles or groups.
All right, that was great. Let's see. Someone is asking, we are looking to leverage DocuWare to make a time off request, I guess, workflow. Could this be done via mobile?
Absolutely. Yeah, so with DocuWare, we did not touch on the DocuWare Forms component, but DocuWare is a tool that allows you to create your own digital forms. It's kind of like a Microsoft Word tool, but simpler, that'll allow you to lay out your own forms, capture critical information like who's submitting this, the reason for time off request, the date of that time off, and that form can be accessed by anyone in the world that you give access to. And frankly, they don't even need to be a DocuWare user. I could even publish this on a website or intranet or extranet. You click on a HTML link, it will present you with the DocuWare form. You can execute that time off request form, and that document will then be sent to DocuWare. It'll file itself, and then whatever workflow you put behind that, let's say alerting your manager that you have requested time off, would automatically happen based on the workflow configuration. So we do a lot of that type of work.
Got it. All right. Looks like we just have couple questions, just two more. Next one is, we are an engineering firm and share PDFs from AutoCAD all the time. Could this work for drawings as well?
Oh, absolutely. So if you were rendering your consumable copy of a CAD drawing of any type in a PDF format, those documents could be filed in DocuWare. We could configure a similar type of operation that allow you, if you had, let's say, header information that we could capture off the document, we could configure it so it even automatically file itself and store it under, let's say, part number, vendor number, product number, and make it available. It would be configured very differently than what you saw in the contract side of things here, but we do an awful lot of work for manufacturers to help them track as built or design documents of any type.
Definitely, yes. We do have a lot of, we have a great amount of case studies on that as well. So if you're interested, I could share those with you. Let's see. One last question. I guess this is a question from me to you, Mark, just because I think we can wrap up now. I don't see any other questions that have come in, but maybe you could elaborate or just kind of spotlight, like, how would you say DocuWare differs from, basic file share solutions like Google Drive or Dropbox? Maybe people are using that. Like, how does DocuWare, take it to the next level?
So DocuWare, I guess the major difference that you'll find is that the products you described are pretty much folder based, which means you really kind of need to know where the documents are to find them. And there's a much more, ad hoc requirement to name files and create folders. And finally, they're oftentimes much less secure. So typically, for most consumers of documents in DocuWare, I lock the system down so no given individual can delete a document in one step. So we may give them a stamp to request a deletion, but we lock that down heavily, so it's the security, it's the tracking of who's interacted with those documents. And behind the simple storage and retrieval, there's this whole concept of workflow that's embedded in the tool that is all part of one platform that works seamlessly together and basically allows you to build your own storage, archival, retrieval securely, number one, and number two, business processes can be embedded into that storage archive very, very effectively.
All right, awesome, thank you. So it looks like that's it for time today. Just a reminder, when the webinar ends, a really short survey will pop up. Please take a minute just to complete that, and also will help give you another entry for those cool DocuWare socks. Thank you again, Mark, for the first look demo. And yeah, that should be everyone. We do have our next webinar on December 13th, which will show workflow automation. So we'll kind of show that a bit more in depth. You'll receive an email from your DocuWare partner, or that should come out in the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to seeing you again. Definitely reach out, and hope you have a great Thanksgiving season.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.